giggler. We always start with somebody laughing, and we didn't have anybody laughing. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Cubist. My name is Bill Corey. I am the Cubist, and happy tax day almost. Technically tomorrow, right?
Ooh.
Yeah, everybody. I live in Wisconsin, and nobody has paid any attention to tax day because we got hit with a blizzard yesterday that snowed in basically the entire state. So nobody remembers that crap right now anyway. But anyway, hi. Good news. The internet still works, so we're still here. So I am accompanied by the wonderful Mr. Patrick Hillier tonight. Hi, Patrick.
Hey, how are you?
I'm well, sir. I'm snowed into my crappy apartment, so that's all right. And then we have our special guest for tonight. Hang on, let me see if let me get this right. The About Us, Mr. Casey Hill from Arkon. Okay, so the game is Arkon. Is the company Arkon?
No, the company is Hill Gaming Company.
Hill Gaming Company. There you go. So Casey Hill from Hill Gaming Company. Hello, Casey. How are you?
Hey, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me, Bill.
Absolutely. I'm glad to have you here. We enjoy talking to maybe smaller publishers sometimes, and people, first-time designers, first-time publishers, or whatever. We've had a few on the show in the past, and it's always fun to get new voices into the conversation. So I'm really excited to talk about Arkon, or Akron, if you're no, not Akron. Arkon? Okay, fine. Whatever. That was a pre-show joke. Apparently, that's a thing that's happened a lot. But you can check out, if you want to follow along with us, viewers, right down in the notes for the show, there is a hyperlink that you can go to and follow along with the website for the game. But before we get into that, and before we get into even the what have we played lately section, I need to kind of make a channel announcement real fast. So just hang in there, everybody. I promise we'll get to the good stuff in a minute. Ladies and gentlemen, YouTube has changed their algorithm on how subscribers work again. And now it is a lot. Apparently, what videos are getting pushed to your subscriptions window is being prioritized in a really weird way. So here's what we're going to say. If you are a fan of the show and you want to make sure that you never miss an episode of this, whether it's one of the Monday shows or the experiment that we did yesterday, there's going to be more content, a lot more content coming on the channel. We will talk about that at the end of the show. You're going to want to make sure that you are subscribed down there. I think as you're looking at it, it'll be right down there. And there's a little bell next to it. Click the bell. We're not just saying that because YouTubers always tell you to click the little notification, or any notification squad nonsense. None of that crap. It's just that right now, YouTube is really been doing some weird stuff with how they prioritize their stuff. And because we live stream through Google Hangouts, YouTube is where this is going to land. So we can't even go to Twitch, like a lot of other YouTubers are doing. So we really want everybody to catch the show. Make sure you subscribe, hit that little bell, so that way you definitely get notified every time we do a show. We would really like to keep everybody coming back week after week because we really enjoy what we do here. So, all right, that's the quick channel plug. Thanks for listening. Let's get into what we've been playing lately. Patrick.
Yes.
Your shelf behind your right shoulder has a new visitor on it.
Yes, it
Tell
does.
us about it?
I finally got to the table the expansion to Role Player called Monsters and Minions. I only got it played solo because I haven't been able to get much game playing in recently. But it's actually a fine game to play solo. So Role Player, for those of you who don't know, is a game where you're creating a role-playing character. So I have years and years and years of role-playing history behind me, playing Dungeons and Dragons and the like. So this game speaks to me in that sort of arena, and I think that's kind of important that for non-role players, if you don't have that sort of history, maybe it's not as interesting to just make up a character. But basically, you're grabbing dice out of a bag and you're putting them into your character, trying to generate the slots to make the characteristic stats, strength, dexterity, intelligence, etc. The thing that's different for this expansion is it adds monsters and minions. So everyone says, "Oh, what do you do after you create your character?" And so this adds this monster that everyone in the group has to fight at the end. And Normally you can roll like 1 dice to kill the monster, and that's not enough. So you have to kind of adventure while you're creating your character, fighting his minions, and his minions are a little bit easier. And the minions allow you to unlock the monster's location, objective, and something else. Three little areas, and then those areas kind of give you some bonus dice. And then, you know, through kind of the adventure of the game, you get a big handful of dice, and that is what's going to allow you to defeat the monster at the end. So it kind of gives you something to do. The only negative of it is, for those of you who've played Role Player, you have to give up going to the market to go after these little minions. And so you used to collect these things. You used to collect like suits of armor, and if you get all of the chainmail pieces, or you get all the wizards pieces, you would get this big bonus of victory points. And you're kind of foregoing going after that stuff to go after the minions. So that was I don't know, it's the negative. It's just a kind of a trade-off.
So it becomes less about the set collection aspect, which was definitely a pretty big part of Role Player, I would argue, or at least like one of the 2 main like side parts, right?
It was a big way to get points anyway.
Yeah. Gotcha. Okay. So you sacrifice some of that, but now it adds another way, and you get points from defeating the bad guy minions and whatever.
Yeah, you get these little things. You get experience points, and then you unlock these things to defeat the bad guy, and you can use the experience points to activate your special powers, to manipulate your dice that help you get more points. And then you get points for doing a better job at defeating the bad guy. You know, you get a certain number of points for just beating him, and then if you beat him really better roll, you get more points. So
what's the time frame on it?
Oh, 30 to 60 minutes maybe.
Okay. So quick.
Wow. That makes me laugh, because Role Player for me is such a brain burner. Like I'm not normally the world's worst AP gamer. Role Player just makes my brain seize up like a engine that's been out of oil for a long time.
Oh, this is me solo. The first time I played it was with our guest host Kimberly, and this was at like 2 in the morning at BGG with 4 of us. So that didn't go well.
Kimberly is sort of the queen of making poor suggestions on what games to play at Weird Al.
I know, but her thing was, all right, so when do we play? I mean,
yeah,
she didn't get the point of Role Player. It's about making the character. It's not, you don't do anything with it when you.
Well, except you do now, right? I mean, that's the whole
now,
point.
Right? So this would answer that. This would answer that question for those people who didn't get it.
So now she can go kill monsters. Very good.
Yeah, exactly. So it's for me, this is a take it or leave it kind of an expansion. I don't have any problem with it. I don't know if it's necessary, because I was fine with Role Player as it is. The one thing it did add that was kind of interesting, it adds these clear dice that have I forget what the range was. It's like 3 to 9 or something. It's just a different range.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So the nice thing is it makes it easier and almost hard. And sometimes because if you remember, you're not trying to get, if you remember your characteristics, you're trying to get, sometimes it's within a range. Like you have to get exactly between 15 to 18 or something. So sometimes I was going over when I use those clear dice. And then they also don't help you get your backstory, because you're trying to get those patterns, right?
Right. Okay. So they're higher, theoretically, making it easier for you to get the bigger stats, but they don't help with the other half of it. Okay.
Right. And they also help when you have like a 1 somewhere and you're not like screwed by the 1s as bad.
Sure.
So they were okay.
All right.
But then they don't like flip over. Like that was the other weird thing. Is like, I always know like the backside of a 6 is a 1, when you get a strength roll and you can flip it over. Like, what's the backside of an 8? It's a 7. Well, that's not great. What the hell, and you don't.
So it doesn't even work. Like it's not even like a D6 plus 2.
Right. You don't. Yeah. I couldn't figure out the math.
Okay. So it wasn't even that. All right.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. So I have one last question. Do you know, does the expansion fit into the base game box? Like, can you get everything?
Barely. I had to take all the stuff out, and also, I kind of packaged mine up. There's just a lot of like bits and parts to this game. There's like, there's like there's the market deck, and then there's the player starter cards, and then there's this deck, and there's that deck, and there's that deck, and they just kind of get all mixed together. And I just put everything in its own bag. And then once I did all that and I got everything in the box, it was just like, it just barely fit. It doesn't fit. There's whatever, Brandon would go off on it. There's that little lift, I think he calls it.
There's lid lift?
Lid lift. Yes, that's the word.
Okay.
There's lid lift.
I can't deal with that. that to me, no, legit. Like, that's not a thing I'm actually going to rant about that in a future.
Okay.
In a future show.
Then no, it does not fit. It does not fit.
All right. So, Role Player Monsters and Minions, which creates lid lift.
There it goes.
On the Cubist scale.
Knocks it right down. That's the new thing for the back of the shirt.
No lid lift.
No lid lift.
All right. So, on the Cubist scale, buy it, play it, forget it, or burn it.
Oh gosh, definitely play it.
Play it. Okay.
I mean, it's fun. It's a fun play.
But it's not required.
It's not required at all.
Okay. Yeah. I got to say, the thing that I think sounds the most compelling out of it is the clear dice. Like, that part sounds awesome. You could have just given me a wad of clear dice and a page rule sheet, and that sounds fun, right?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, that the rest of it.
That was the other fun thing. It gives you a little mini character sheet that was just kind of cool.
Oh, that's cool.
It's like you can take your notes at the end, and you put your character alignment and all the stuff you found, and you create this little character when you're done.
Sure.
It's kind of real old school.
Gotcha.
Sort of thing.
All right.
It totally plays off of retro.
For sure. And I think I've talked to a number of people that never played D&D, especially not old school D&D, where you would roll dice for character creation. Mm-hmm. And they seem to enjoy it just fine. So I wouldn't say that that the game doesn't seem to require that sort of a background, but it definitely leans into it. Like, if you have that background, you're definitely going to get more of like the feel, I think, than if you don't. But it's very good.
Oh, I got to mention April Fools for those people who enjoy April Fools. Was it Geek? What's the Geek website?
BoardGameGeek.com. I hear is a pretty big deal.
Not the board gaming. That sells nerdy stuff. Did the 4D6 in me was a made up version of the gene thing. You're spitting a cup thing and you mail it off.
Yeah,
and it would give you your D&D stats.
Nice.
Yeah, that was clever, actually.
That was hilarious. That. They had like a video on it, and he was like, "Oh man, I found out like I have like a 4 charisma and a 6 strength. I think I'm going to be a wizard." Think Geeks. Somebody posted that.
That's cool. I think that.
That was hilarious. It was really. That was one of the best ones.
Is it still up there?
I don't know if it is or not, but it was a win. Because Alan just got that done like a few weeks before, so it was fresh in our house, and he's a D&D player, so he got the joke.
Very cool. All right, I might have to go check that out.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's clever.
Casey?
Hey.
Have you gotten to play anything lately?
I haven't gotten to play as many games as I'd like lately because it's been kind of crazy. But still, that being said, I still get a good amount. I usually get about, I don't know, I'd say maybe 3 to 4 play sessions a week recently. So, but again, with that, and we'll kind of maybe talk about this more when I talk about Arkon and kind of my background, but I play a lot of kind of slightly quicker games. So that also affects the scope, big difference between if you're playing, Scythe or Gloom or one of those, games versus, something that's kind of quicker. But one that I have played recently that my wife picked up actually, because she kept reading about it on the board game forums. And then she was like, I need to get Azul. So she picked up Azul and we got that one and I actually really enjoyed it. It's pretty interesting. It's another one of these kind of quick games. It's nothing like Splendor in terms of like dynamics, but it reminds me of the same type of like low barrier of entry, quick to pick up, just a couple composite parts. But it's pretty thinky, I think there's a lot of interesting, like after I played it a couple times, it's basically for people who haven't played it, it's a tile laying game. So you essentially have a couple different sets of tiles that are laid out. You select them. So it's almost kind of like you could think of it like a drafting dynamic. You're drafting sets of tiles and then you're placing them on the board in different combinations to get points. But it's really quick to learn, really accessible game, and there's a lot of ways that you can kind of lay out your tiles on this map. So it definitely is one of those games where you leave it thinking, okay, here's how I could approach it the next time. And it's personally one that, yeah, again, I've had a good time with and been kind of brainstorming the numeric combinations of how to best set it up. But yeah, I've definitely enjoyed it. Have either of you two played Azul before?
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, it's fine. Everybody else on the channel likes it a lot more than I do. I still don't hate it. It's just it's fine. It's fine.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
Very good.
I really like the kind of the meanness of the kind of the drafting at a point, you know,
which is why Brandon Kemp really likes it too.
Yeah, it's not too mean. It just has a little bit of, you know, oh, you know, look, if I take this, you're going to have to draw 6 black ones.
Yeah, totally. Drafting is such an interesting dynamic. I mean, I'm a big Magic the Gathering fan too, from my background, and just I think I gravitate towards drafting dynamics in general. It's almost one of those things where I feel like there's kind of like stages. It's like when you play a game like Azul for the first time, you're kind of like only thinking about your play, right? And then as you get more sophisticated and as you get more knowledge, you start to think about your opponents more, and it's kind of like a graduated type of thing, which I think is common in a lot of drafting games, right? Like when you first start playing Magic, you're like, okay, how do I grab all the cards that are this color that I want to draft? And as you get more mature and as you get better at it, you start thinking much more about what the other people are drafting. So it kind of evolves a little bit in that sense.
I will say, so you said your wife said you had to buy this, right?
I should correct that. My wife just bought it.
Your wife just said,
and then was like, we have Azul now. I was like, okay, cool.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, Matt in the chat, at one point when he was playing Azul, it just felt like me handing people stuff for 20 minutes. Yeah, I think there's definitely a certain amount of the game can just get down to people quietly doing stuff. But it is I don't want to go all negative, especially before you give your rating, Casey, because clearly it's a game that you really enjoy. And I don't mean to be yucking anybody's yum or anything like that. I think it is one of those games where I recognize that it is a extremely well-designed game that's just not my jam. So I'm definitely not trying to hate on the game at all. I think it's just not my thing. So on the Cubist scale for you, Casey, is it a buy it, play it, forget it, or burn it?
Yeah, you know, I'd kind of put it somewhere in between play it and buy it. Again, I think I enjoy it. I think that it's not necessarily like a must-have for me, but it's something that I definitely could see myself bringing to the table a number of times. So I'd probably put it at the play it stage.
There you go. And that's where I put it too. Just so we're clear, before the hate mail starts rolling in, just so we're clear, I still call it a play it. I don't dislike the game. It's just not a game that I'm going to like go out of my way to get. Right. Like, but I'll happily play it. If I'm at a convention, somebody's like, hey, let's play Azul. Sure, I'll play. I don't mind. It's just, yeah, it definitely does look like candy for sure. It is Starburst, the board game. No doubt about it.
Have you guys been seeing the giant one at the conventions?
No.
No, I haven't.
Yeah, the pieces are, I don't know, like 1.5 inch square.
Oh, you know what? I saw pictures of those going around. Yeah. I think when it was first out in the wild.
Yeah, it's just, I'm seeing more of it now.
It's the childproof version, so that way people aren't tempted to eat them.
I guess so.
Worry about your 4-year-old eating your board.
I actually have some Starburst that I permanently keep in mind.
Nice. Just so that way you control people and eat one of your pieces in the middle of the game and have people go like, "Oh my God, what are you doing?" Nice. I love that you're our resident troll, Patrick. So, all right. So from Casey, Azul is a play it. Is that right?
Yep.
Perfect. Good. All right. I haven't gotten to do squat for actual physical gaming lately, which sucks, but I have gotten to do a little bit of online gaming over the last week or so. And specifically, I've gotten a couple plays in of Russian railroads, specifically the German railroads expansion for Russian railroads on yukata.de. For those of you that don't know, Russian Railroads is a worker placement game where basically I think you start with, I don't remember how many workers, because when I played 2-player yesterday, it was 6 workers. Start with some workers. There are action spaces all across the table, and those action spaces primarily let you move a piece, a rail piece or an industry piece along tracks on your board. And as those pieces move, they will allow you to unlock more pieces that you can move along those boards. And the first piece that you move along any given track of rail doesn't earn you any points, but then as you unlock more pieces on that same track, they'll start earning you victory points. And the industry track earns you victory points. It does a lot of really neat stuff. It's a little bit hard to explain in a brief period of time, such as this section of the Cubist does, and I don't want to go over long because I can feel Kimberly scowling at me, even though she's not watching the show, like just knowing that I'm talking too much here. German railroads specifically, for those of you that do know Russian railroads, what German railroads does is it makes the board modular such that instead of the 3 tracks always having the same benefits and therefore allowing players to get into I know that this is how I play Russian railroads and I will always take the strategy. The modular boards mean that when you get your black track to a specific section, then you draft basically 1 tile from the stack for that section, and that tile will have whatever the little power-ups are on it. And then there's also the coal expansion, which I have yet to play with. So there is a whole nother little module in there involving coal. I have still never played with that after 4 or 5 plays on the German railroads thing. Yes, First Class is a very similar but a simplified version of it, Patrick. That's a really good. That is the analogy that I've heard a lot of people draw. I've only played First Class once. I did enjoy it, but I feel like Russian railroads I enjoy more.
Yeah, I've not played Russian or German. I've only played First Class. That was why I was asking.
Gotcha. Okay. So here's what I'm going to say. I am objectively terrible at basic Russian railroads. And in the basic Russian railroads game, people that know what they want to do can have refined their strategy over multiple plays will crush you like a grape if you're learning the game. Like there is, and that's fine. I don't have a problem with skilled players playing better than unskilled players, but there's no methodology aside from the worker placement aspect to slow people down in the base game, or at least it doesn't feel that way. German railroads, because you can draft away those tiles, cause every play to be a little bit different and provide more variety. Therefore, I think making it a little bit easier for newer players to be competitive early on in their learning curve. And for that, I'm going to give, in my opinion, German railroads is a buy it. I think that if you like Russian railroads, you need to own German railroads, because I think that it does everything that I wish Russian railroads would have done from the get-go, making those player boards, your little maps, a little more modular, making them just forcing players to rethink their strategies a little bit. No, Matt, I am not going to boast about beating you, because I only beat you because I accidentally tripped over your strategy and did it first. That's the only reason. Like I barely beat you even then. It was terrible. Like Matt Roy is a better player than I am in every way. It was Matt and Kimberly and I that played last week, and they are both better at that game than I am. And I managed to sneak out a win literally just because I inadvertently disrupted all of Matt's play, and Kimberly was sleep deprived from issues. That's the only reason I won. So, but I think if you have Russian railroads, you need to get German railroads. My next step is I really want to play American railroads, the other expansion that was released only on BGG. Captain Bislot has a copy of it. But we have had a hard time lining up our schedules for him to get the cardboard version down to me, but I really want to play that. So for me, German railroads, the expansion for Russian railroads, is an absolute buy it. No doubt about it. Have you played, you've only played First Class. Casey, have you played either of these?
No, I haven't,
Okay.
but it sounds intriguing. I like worker placement games, so definitely have to add that one in.
This is, in my opinion, I think one of the, I hate to use the pun engine builder in a game about trains, but it really does feel sort of engine buildery in that you're going to basically create a strategy as you go, and then use your worker placement to enact that strategy over and over again. And the better you get at certain parts of it, the better that worker placement, like the more powerful it will feel like it is. And in turn one, everybody will get maybe like 10 points, but by the end of the game, I mean, we had winning scores are in the 300s and 400s. So like there's, you know, it definitely ramps up over the span of, I want to say seven turns. So yeah, quiet down. You don't hate puns, Patrick. The chat room is picking on me for puns. It's whatever. It's fine. Everything's fine. So anyway, that's German Railroads from Hans und Gluck, and it is a buy it for me if you're a Russian, if you already have Russian railroads. So, oh God. All right. I'm going to start ignoring the chat while we go into our main topic. All right. So the main topic, I'm not normally super like just chill based, right? Like when we talk, I try very hard to make the main topic of every show about some sort of greater topic. And then I quite frankly tell all the guests, you know, we're going to try and steer into the things that you want to talk about. But Casey has, and Hill, is it Hill Gaming Company? Is that what it is?
Yeah.
Thank you. Hill Gaming Company just published or is in the process of publishing. Do people have it in their hands yet?
No, it's delivering in December.
Got it. All right. So it's delivering at the end of the year. Their first game called Arkon, Arkon.
Yep.
And we've talked about this. The chat's been talking a little bit about this here and there, but we're going to talk about what it's like to publish a first game, what it's like to publish a game that is functioning over very specific limitations. We'll come back to that in a minute. Yeah. But first, so that way everybody can get on board, ladies and gentlemen, there is a link, arkongame.com, in the description for this video. If you want to click and take a look at the Kickstarter trailer, probably don't play that. That'll make the rest of this kind of hard to read, but there's a how to play so you can get a basic idea of the rules. But Casey, why don't you give us a quick intro on how Arkon works? Yeah,
totally. And yeah, that video is great. Has lots of cool animations and is going to be more eloquent and epic than me describing it here. But essentially it's a small box game. It's just the core version is just 52 cards. The Kickstarter with the promos and extensions is like 62 cards. But basically, it's a non-linear strategy card game, and I'll return to that non-linear bit because people are always like, what the hell does that mean? So essentially, but I first want to talk about the major two dynamics in it. So it's really based around bidding and multi-use cards. So the idea is that unlike like a conventional kind of like mana system, the way that you bring a card into play is you essentially bid for it in a blind bid-based system. And the win condition is you get 4 clans, essentially 1 of each type or 4 of one type. And so that's kind of how the game is constructed. There's, you know, the standard fantasy race of clans. You got your orcs, your dwarves, your elves, and your humans, and you're trying to bring them into play. So you can kind of think of it as almost like a set collection type of dynamic around that. But really the game hinges around this idea that all cards that you have in your hand have multiple modalities in which they can be played. So a card has a certain way it can be played as an action, for instance. You could also choose to use it as a bid, and you can also save it to use it as a counter. So there's a very simple matching counter system. Like when someone plays an action, anyone at the table can play a matching card. So the idea was to try to pack kind of as much depth and interaction as we could into like basically a small box game, right? Into basically a tuck box, to be honest. You know, my background, I'm a really big fan of Magic the Gathering. I'm a really big fan of Star Realms. A lot of these other games that were kind of influential in kind of paving that course. One thing that I found, though, was the interaction component. You know, and I'm going to mention and bring up Magic the Gathering probably several times because I am a huge fan. And my brother, who co-designed it, is a professional gold level player who flies all around the world doing magic things. So that was definitely a big kind of factor. But it's really designed right as a 1v1. At a core level, right? There's some different modes, but it's designed as a 1v1 game. And so what we wanted to do was try to build something that had strategic depth, but also was very interactive. And we found that bidding was a way that you're constantly kind of assessing your options across all turns. And so that was kind of became an instrumental part of the game. We actually started originally with just multi-use cards, but early on in the play testing of the game, we were realizing that there was too much slow time around the table. And when we introduced bidding and we started bringing it into game stores, we just noticed this huge uptick in kind of game satisfaction. And we were like, okay, that was the right way to go with this. And then we kind of went through a long process of refining that, and went all across California primarily, but just went to dozens and dozens of game stores and basically took the approach of just trying to get this out in as many people's hands as possible so that they could kind of play and give us feedback. And we had kind of a structured form that was looking at some very specific areas of the game and kept kind of iterating from. So anyways, that was a really long-winded basic explanation as Bill told me to lay out here, but that's a little bit of context.
That's perfect. We're going to talk about the different aspects of a couple things that you talked about here, plus the chat room has already talked about the artwork in the game, so we'll definitely be touching on that. I love that on the landing page of your website, 208 external playtests held over 2 years of development and over 1,500 hours of development. One of the things that I think a lot of gamers like to crab about is that they feel like playtesting is not a focus, or maybe it isn't thorough enough, or there aren't enough sets of eyes looking at this. Since you clearly have tracked a lot of stats, do you have any idea how many unique people have played the game? Did you track that as well? I'm just curious.
Yeah, I don't know if I have like a total aggregate number, because especially as we expanded, right, we started trying to get the print and play onto as many forums as possible. That was another way we were kind of getting it out there. And so, yeah, I mean, really the numbers that we tracked is when we would reach out to a gaming store and we'd be like, hey, can we come here for like a demo of our game? We would essentially track the number of like unique games. So it's a 2 to 4 player game. So if we had, 3 pods that were playing at a game night, then we would track that as like, the different numbers of sessions, 3 unique sessions, because it would be 3 separate groups of people.
Gotcha.
That essentially was the idea behind it.
I love the idea that you went out of your way to track this, though. I think that that's really interesting. And for the people that are, I'm just going to keep shilling your website here, because I think there's a lot of really interesting things in here, like the design blog, where you are quite straight up referencing other games that clearly influenced you somewhere along the way.
I have a question about that.
Yeah.
So there was a reference to Monopoly Deal.
Oh,
yeah.
Somewhere. I need to hear about how that's related.
Yeah. So Monopoly Deal is kind of a funny one. Monopoly Deal, I've actually played. I've actually never played Monopoly Deal, but when someone was explaining to me kind of the setup of how it was structured, they were explaining there was a lot of commonalities, and they basically, in the comment section of the Kickstarter, people were mentioning different things that reminded them either because of multi-use cards or because of bidding or a series of different dynamics. And I kept hearing Monopoly Deal kept coming up. Yeah. And so that's like something I definitely need to actually play.
Well, it doesn't suck. So,
but because of the number of references, I felt like it was relevant for me to put that inclusion in there.
I just thought that was really a weird comparison.
Well, and here's the thing though, right? Like Monopoly Deal is one of those few quote unquote mainstream games that gamers hold up as, see, there's a hidden gem here, right? Like it's the game that a lot of people talk about. I've never played it either, Casey, so don't feel bad about this. But when I saw that, I was like, okay, I actually kind of love that, because that is a game that definitely would qualify as something of a hidden gem. At least it seems like it.
And so after, because playtesters and so many other people have mentioned it, that's the inclusion. But after I play it, if I find like, oh wait, this is totally wrong, I'll pull it off the website.
That's awesome. All right. So card games where cards do different things is not unique to Arkon, right? Like it's been done a few times before, although it seems like that the density of how many different things every card can do seems to be a little bit higher than usual here. The game that I initially popped into my head when I started reading up on Arkon was not because of the bidding aspect, but the cards doing multiple things part. The first thing I always think of is Race for the Galaxy and San Juan. Those are the games where I feel like those are the games that sort of maybe defined the genre of using cards for multiple purposes. Are those games, have you played either one of those? Did those play in at all?
Actually not. So San Juan, is that an expansion to Puerto Rico?
No, it's a card game version-ish.
Okay.
Ish. It is not I would not, it's about as much of a card game version of that as, it's really not.
Okay.
It is a card game themed on it.
I've played Puerto Rico, but I haven't played San Juan.
Gotcha. Okay. So it's a cards do multiple things game. That might be one that you might want to check out. You might like that.
Yeah, totally.
There's a really good app for it.
Yes, there is a good app version of it as well. One of the things that the chat room talked about, and I just want to jump right into this, is the artwork. So your Kickstarter trailer is gorgeous. When Patrick and I were doing our pre-show before you got here tonight, it looks like a Warcraft. Like it looks like something almost like Blizzard would have put out. How did you get this blinged out artwork? Because the art, I mean, you have, not only do you have a really killer trailer here, but you have the artist that worked on the Lord of the Rings card game, right?
Yeah, one of them. Yeah, we have a number of awesome guys. Yeah, Joshua Kairos has worked on a number of big names, and he kind of increasingly kept working on a number of larger and larger. So as the design, I mean, we were in development for 2 years, and so towards the tail end, it got a little hard for us to nail down time with him. But yeah, he's an awesome guy, and was, you know, one of the pioneering people behind the art to kick it off. He essentially did about half the illustrations for the like base version of the game. So yeah, super talented and nice guy.
And just the idea of a first time publisher getting this kind of level of art, like how important was the art to this project for you? Like, I mean, clearly this is something that you put some kind of a priority on. Like,
yeah.
Go ahead.
It was one of those things. We started shopping around. We were going on DeviantArt and a lot of other places. Obviously, coming from really appreciating things like what MTG had put together with just stunning art. I mean, some of the best in the industry, in my opinion. We really liked that style. And so it was something that was important. It was important as part of the aesthetic. The first launch in this first game really was not really about a profit, to be honest, right? The takeaway from this won't be large, but it was just about getting something that into as many people's hands as possible. And obviously, the way I kind of see it is, a game having good core dynamics is what makes people replay it, and it's what makes people share it and spread the word. But having nice art is an important part of people kind of grabbing people's attention in a very crowded marketplace. And so, we felt that, we can get these good, solid core dynamics down, but how do we get people to actually give it a shot and check it out? And hopefully the art is something that, gets into people's hands, and then the actual experience, once they have that, will hopefully be what will continue to help it grow.
Yeah, for sure. Go ahead, Patrick.
No, I was just agree.
I think it is a gorgeous game. Like everything that I've seen about the graphic design and the artwork itself. I don't know. Oh, sorry. I was looking at the chat there for a second. It's clear that you guys poured a lot of love into this game. Okay, so you said something in there a minute ago that I want to touch on again, which is that that you're not going to get rich off of Arkon, right? Is like, I mean, and that's not because you don't believe in the game. It's because you're pouring everything into this to make this a quality product. Is that a good way to sum up kind of where your thought process was here?
Yeah, and I also want to clarify, hopefully the actual game of Arkon long-term can be a success. The Kickstarter specifically, just because of the fixed cost there, we're going to have a lot of product left over, and we want to go to conventions, and we want to continue to share it. But yeah, the focus on the Kickstarter was just literally to get it into as many people's hands as possible. And then hopefully through Board Game Geek reviews and through people playing it and sharing it, if the game is good, hopefully that will be the impetus behind it growing. That's our thought process, at least.
That makes perfect sense. Okay, so you came at this from you referenced Magic multiple times, so let's dive into that a little bit more. Magic, and then Star Realms is another game that you talked about a lot. Those are both very PvP punch the other guy kind of card games. The vibe that I get from Arkon is that Arkon is more of it's a set collection game, essentially, right? You're trying to either get the large straight or four of a kind in cards that you put up in auctions, right?
It is, but there is definitely a lot of it. I would be amiss to say that there isn't take that in Arkon, because a lot of the cards you have allow you to, switch the clans on your side with the clans on their side, take, individual clans, move clans to your hand, look at their hand and remove cards. So there's a number of tactical cards that are helping you filter and kind of are strategically changing your board state, but there's also a lot of interaction with other players' board states as well. So it's a little bit of a hybrid, but it definitely includes, that's something that we talked and and our reviewers were also open about with people, is like, if you take that, then that might not be the best avenue for you, right?
Gotcha.
It's one of those things that has that as part of the environment. So
Gotcha.
yeah, I'd say it's a little bit of a mix.
Okay, that's fair. So let me backpedal a little bit. I feel like I inadvertently kind of put the cart in front of the horse, or the train in front of the tracks. I don't know. I was trying to figure out another way to do a train pun in there, and I couldn't come up with one. All right, let's go 2 years back, okay? Yep. And let's hear, how did we get, like, how did this start? Where is the genesis of this? So you're a Magic player. Your brother is a professional gold level Magic player. I don't follow the pro tour, so I don't I'm assuming gold is good. Gold is generally good. So
second to the highest, yeah.
Second to highest. All right. So he's no slouch. He doesn't suck. You guys have where did this start? Where was the first moment of this game design process?
Yeah. So the game actually began, the funny story of how this game began. So every Christmas, me and my wife do creative gifts. And so this Christmas, I had decided that I was going to make a card game. And it was a very, very bare bones card game. It was not fantasy themed. It was actually building themed. And it was basically a super, super cut down version of Arkon that was basically just based on multi-use cards. And so I gave it to her, and it was something that came up with rather quickly. And we started playing it, and we all enjoy games, and we've been doing games for most of our lives. And we were like, hey, this is actually not bad. Like for a kind of a random gift, this is interesting. And it was interesting enough that we decided, well, what if we tried to tweak some things, and we kind of kept iterating, and then we got to a point where we're like, okay, like we'll actually start playing this with some family and friends. And that was kind of our first stage. And then it was like, okay, we kept kind of iterating, and then from there kind of grew to a point where we decided this might be something, let's see what we can build this into. And so that's when we started outside play testing, and pretty quickly within the first, I'm trying to think of the exact time frame, but within the first couple months, we essentially added in the bidding dynamic, which I think really helped Arkon grow into like what it is as a current iteration. Like I can't really even think about Arkon divorced from that dynamic, because that's so central to the gameplay and the interaction as it currently stands. But that was the genesis. It began as a Christmas gift.
It's a Christmas gift that you were making. Okay, that's so you designed this. You and your wife, or you?
I designed this with my dad, actually. That's another thing interesting. There's not too many father-son combos. That's, I think, more rare than probably brothers combos in the game design industry. But my dad was definitely a very central part of getting this off the ground and testing it and everything as well.
Okay. So you created this card game, very stripped down, bare bones card game, just to send out to people as like, hey, Merry Christmas, here's a cool thing. And then you realized it doesn't suck. And then you realized it maybe not only doesn't suck, but this might actually be good, like real good, right? Like good enough to put money and time into, and not just say, well, that was a fun Christmas. Okay.
Right.
So then so at what point did you, well, first off, did you shop this to publishers? Like, did you take this and send it out to other publishers? Or did you, when you got to the point where you knew you wanted to do something with it, or did you just instantly say, yes, we're just going to publish this?
Yeah, no, so again, so this is completely self-published. We haven't sent this game to any outside publishers. To speak to Matt in the questions, if you ship the game to publishers, did you find the comparisons to Magic the Gathering and Star Realms detrimental or helpful? So essentially, yeah, this is entirely self-set up. My day job, I work as a marketing consultant for small businesses. And so essentially, we also have a tech platform that we operate from called Entreport, and that allows us to do e-commerce and all sorts of database type of stuff. So my idea of how I wanted to grow this was essentially to do Kickstarter and then use my own internal systems to kind of sell and grow it from there. Potentially that will change somewhere down the line, but we haven't presented it to any publishers. We've talked with a number of different kind of companies and teams, and who knows whether partnerships down the line will be something that we'll do. But my focus very much, because it's easy as a first-time publisher, I think, to get lost in the noise. You get tons of emails and people that are reaching out, and there's partnerships, and there's a million angles. I try to keep it very simple. What I want to do is get the game, into as many people's hands as possible, and then let them talk to people about it and let them share and let them write their reviews, and let's start there. And if there then is a wave of, hey, this is really awesome, like, what else? Then we'll talk, then it's like the thought process of expansions and next steps. But I don't want to, jump there first. My focus right now is just to get the game out and delivered. Yeah.
And as somebody that is waiting on a lot of Kickstarters that are delayed, we appreciate the fact of anybody that runs a Kickstarter that actually is just prioritizing putting the games in people's hands. Just throwing that out there. I'm certainly not calling back to a rant I've done multiple times on this show about certain Kickstarters that I've been
We're not talking about Gigarobo.
No, for sure not. So, okay. So the plan, so Hill Gaming Company is like, are there, okay, so you've been intending to keep this in-house from the get-go. This was never shopped out. This is good. I already have some infrastructure, so I already know how I would proceed with this. I'm just going to proceed with it. And you ran a successful Kickstarter.
Excuse me.
And I don't recall, because I'm an idiot and I can't come up with it off the top of my head. It was a very successful Kickstarter, if I recall correctly, right?
40,000 of its $5,000 goal, according to the page.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, what we were really, $40,000 number was awesome, but what we were really excited about was 1,200 plus backers. I mean, that's the number that, makes me smile and feel super stoked. Is that's a lot of people from, 19 different countries. And so, yeah, we were absolutely thrilled to get that kind of reception. And yeah, it's awesome.
Well, and the way to think about this also, right, is that the big aggregate number on the how much money you made thing is all well and good, but it's not really relevant for like smaller games. That end number isn't going to be gigantic, like maybe a Cool Mini or Not, Minis for Days game where people are backing at $300, like it's really easy to get a gigantic number out of those sorts of campaigns when everybody's buying in for, 3 digits worth of cash. When you're talking about a game that you're pre-ordering for $20, like that's a pretty solid, like that's definitely successful. Getting that many backers off of a first time is definitely a success. So I don't sell yourself short on that by any.
Yeah. No, we were thrilled. And a big part about this too was, and we tried to show this on our Kickstarter page, and we tried to just get it out even initially into as many. I think we ended up with 11 reviews, video reviews, and we had, I think, maybe like 6 written reviews. But we tried to get it out to as many people as possible, both, meeting up with actual players, but also review stations to, kind of put that out there and let people kind of, give their insights and what games people might like if they, like what basically parallels there are, that type of stuff. I think that's a super important thing, especially with how crowded this space is. You kind of need to defer to a larger group. We've had lots of people that have reached out to me since that are developing card games, and they're like, "Hey, what do you do? What are your advice points?" And definitely, that's one of my biggest advice is just get it out there. Whether they're a small channel or a big channel, just having that actual collateral out there for people to get opinions, I think is important.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's no doubt. And it's. The creators, there have been a couple of rants lately from creators thinking about, talking about how people just, cold call and be like, hey, can you please talk about our Kickstarter? But like actually getting the game out into the hands of people so that way they can actually experience it before they talk about it, I think is a big deal too. So that's, I like where your head is at here, that the important part is to get people playing the game, because let's face it, you can have an awesome Kickstarter trailer that looks like it comes out of Blizzard all you want, but if the game isn't good, you're not going to get real gamer buzz out of it. Like, the game's got to be worth playing. So
100%.
Very cool. All right. So Arkon is a successful Kickstarter. People can still pre-order it at arkongame.com. Shill done. Hill Gaming Company. Where is Hill Gaming Company headed next? Is there a second title?
So there's a couple, I think, angles to go potentially. So after we get this delivered and in everyone's hands, I think that the core model that is currently set up does have like tremendous opportunity for expansions. Like there's already tons of ideas that we're mulling over of different dynamics that can interplay with that core base model. We could have, say you could have 10 clans instead, and you could assemble a combination of like 4 different types, kind of almost like you do in a Dominion type of setup. And then those could be very different games. Some of those could be very take that based. Some of them could be very tactical. So you could have many different iterations.
Still be a shared deck though, right?
Right. It would still be a shared deck. It'd still be a shared deck. But we could play to different styles. I definitely see that, the multi-use cards and the bidding as remaining kind of central components that differentiate Arkon. But yeah, that's one angle. And then potentially we'll work on other types of publications. We, as a starting unit, I've worked closely with my brother Tyler and my dad, and my other brother AJ is also super into this space. He's also super into Dungeons and Dragons and D&D. So we've mulled over him getting involved and kind of working on some sort of development in that space, like something that's more kind of RPG based. So we'll see. I think we're going to keep that kind of open and move into that once we've kind of checked off box 1.
Gotcha. So, but Hill Gaming Company for right now is going to stay focused on Arkon, not Akron, Matt. It's not Akron. So
I got a hat. I got a hat that said Arkon, and everyone was like so confused. Like, why are you walking around Santa Barbara with an Akron hat? I was like, Arkon, my game.
Welcome to Ohio. Yeah, great. Good. The only good thing that ever came from Akron, as far as I can tell, is the Black Keys. And any viewers that we may have from Akron, you are also the best thing.
Okay.
But
my wife is a zip.
I'm very sorry that I started the pun thing. I'm paying for it now in the chat. All right. So Arkon is on its way. It's delivering in December. There are expansion ideas kind of kicking around in your brain that hopefully once, and you're waiting, it sounds like, until Arkon actually fulfills before you move forward with any expansion idea.
Yeah, I mean, we have, so I mean, it's the kind of thing that inevitably there's expansion ideas in there. Sure. But we're kind of waiting on that. And also, because it just popped into my mind while we were talking, sure. I said, I'm going to come back to nonlinear, and then I completely forgot it and didn't bring it up again. So the nonlinear, what that is trying to define is that standard games it's very common to have kind of a progression, right? You get more resources, you get more monsters. It kind of moves you in a snowball towards a victory condition, right? So one of the things we noticed when we polled people about Arkon was they kind of described that the game flow was kind of different, right? It really is more based. You could have someone who has 3 clans on the board, and you only need 4 to win, and you could only have 1. But if you have a carefully cultivated hand of 8 cards, and you've been kind of carefully setting up the right combinations in hand, you could still be ahead. So it doesn't have like if one player has this many of a set, they're naturally always in the lead. It's a little bit of a different pacing, and that's what allows people to kind of always be in the game. But it's also a very dangerous thing, right? One of the things we have to be very careful is if you go too far down that road, then it becomes too luck contingent, right? Like the opposite end of the spectrum is that your decisions don't matter, and that it's just going to be whatever turn happens on that turn happens. And so really it comes down to that the cards that you keep in your hand, do I want to bid this now? Do I want to keep this defensively? Do I want to use this offensively? What do I see on the table? Oh, I've used a thievery to look at that player's hand, so I know they have that. I know there's only 4 copies of each card in the deck. There's a lot of, it's one of these games where at a base level, you can kind of just play and be bidding on stuff, and it can be pretty simple, but it can expand a lot. And so there's a lot of kind of calculation, and just like anything that involves bidding, like even going as far as like poker, right? There's a ton of looking at how other people are going to play, how they bid, do they bluff, so those all become incorporated into your decision-making process. But I just wanted to speak on that because that was something we got a lot where people asked, what the heck does nonlinear mean? And so that was our attempt to explain it.
I did a live stream yesterday where I walked through a very simple game called Abandoned Ship. And one of the things that I talked about in there is that I really like the idea of a game that can be played simply, or that you can really dive into and apply lots of brain power to if you so desire. And without ruining the experience for anybody else, right? Like I like games where people can play at different thought levels, for lack of a better term, and still have the game be like an effective play session for everybody, where, it doesn't really matter if you're thinking about, okay, there's 4 copies of this card in the deck and I'm not, I can still play the game effectively, and maybe you'll have an advantage, but it won't Like, it's not your advantage isn't necessarily going to screw me, and vice versa. Does Arkon, it sounds like it meets that criteria as well, right? Like, you can dive real hard into the way the deck is made up, or you can kind of turn that part of your brain off as required. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it totally makes sense. And there's definitely ways. I mean, one of the things that's kind of cool about it is you can be totally down, have 0 cards in hand, and because another dynamic, it seems really subtle, but you draw on everyone's turn, and you draw at the end of your turn. So there's a lot of replenish that happens. So like if you're playing a 4-player game, by the time it comes back to you, and you draw 2 cards at the end of your turn if you put a card up for bid, so you could have 5 more cards. And so your hand quickly replenishes. So you have the ability to kind of stabilize. And I do think there is for sure a skill component, right? Like someone who's able to calculate what's on the table, that is going to give them a market advantage. But it's also one of those things where if you had a terrible start and you made some bad choices, you can totally halfway through the game stabilize, right, with the amount of replenish that happens. So it's kind of, and it's another thing just to mention too, it's a quick game, right? So a lot, especially if you're familiar and you're like a gamer type, a lot of our play testers, like Druid City Games and other people like that, we're running through this in 15 minutes. Okay. And so it's something that has, most of the times we went to gaming stores, it was more like 30 minutes.
Sure. But because people are learning and they're not super familiar with everything. So there's more thought process going into it. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Very cool. I got to say, so when we first set up this show, it was well over a month ago at this point, because we've been, Eric has done such a good job of lining up guests. Good job, Eric, even though he doesn't show up for 3/4 of the show. I'm sorry. Did I say that out loud? I did, didn't I? I'm a terrible person. Anyway, when I first looked at this, I got really excited because I love the idea of versatile small box games that pack a punch. And Arkon seems like that. Now, I haven't played it, obviously, but maybe we'll figure out a way to fix that. Casey. Anyway, we'll see what we can do. But I haven't played it yet, but I'm really excited for any kind of a game that is pocket-sized and delivers enough of a punch that it feels like, and it's and reasonably easy to teach. And I think this hits on all of them. Plus, it's really pretty. Like, well, I mean, if you have a game that's just going to be a deck of cards, it better be a good-looking deck of cards, right? In 2018, anyway. And
a note on that, too, and this is probably where my business acumen, I don't know if this is the best business decision, but we also, so for our new art, we brought on some additional Magic the Gathering, some really top level, just awesome guys, people that are behind, Gristle brand and some of the iconic Magic the Gathering cards. We wanted to be a little bit more versatile. A lot of these guys have really busy schedules, and our core game was done by 2 central artists. So we actually brought on 4 new artists for the Kickstarter promotional cards. And I've been absolutely loving how they've been coming together. I mean, they've been some really epic compositions that they've been putting together. So that's another cool. We have some new talent to bring to the team on the art side as well.
Well, like I said, right at the top of the interview part of the show, it's real clear that art and graphic design were a big priority for you. And I think that was a really smart call. Like I said, I think that you have to have good table presence to get your game noticed nowadays. It's the barrier to entry for good art and good graphic design gets lower and lower every year, right? And that, I'm not saying that anybody can make a pretty game. I'm saying that not anybody, it is easier to make a serviceable game now than it ever was. So if you want to be beyond serviceable and have people have it stick in your brain, it's got to be something special. And I think Arkon, I sound like such a shill. Just so we're clear, I've never played. I'm not getting paid anything from this, right? Like, but I'm really excited for this because I think this fills a really specific niche. Small box card games that pack a lot of punch. I'm geeked about this. Very awesome. Cool. Very cool. All right. So ladies and gentlemen, if you are as excited as I am about Arkon and you haven't run through all of the puns yet, don't look in the chat, Casey. I saw
the chat just rolling and I was just like,
the problem is Dan. I blame Dan. Somebody told him he was funny once.
Well, and
he just
Franz,
never forgot.
Franz doesn't help.
Yeah, Franz isn't helping any, but it's fine. It's fine. But no, so go to arkongame.com, ladies and gentlemen, and check it out for yourself. The trailer is awesome. There's the rule sheet is right up on there, so you can read the rules straight up and get a pretty good idea on how the game works.
And And
Go
another
ahead.
just quick note too, if you guys do look up the Kickstarter page, it's just a nice compilation of all the reviews. I know everyone has different people they follow and different people that they, kind of trust in the review space. So
Sure.
mull through there and see if you see any familiar names.
I did want to comment because one of their reviewers is Cloak and Meeple, and they're from Punchboard Media, Bill.
Oh, they are.
Yeah.
I was going to do the plug at the end. I've been doing it at the end of the show.
I was trying to work that in.
They are a proud member of Punchboard Media, where we all bring something to the table. As the Cubist is also a member of. Thank you.
Yeah.
Patrick. Yeah, you're even more shameless than I am. That's terrible.
That was a horrible.
That was the worst segue, and we're not particularly good at segues to begin with, Patrick. Thank you for making that one extra clunky. I appreciate that. So, all right.
But yes.
Casey, this has been a lot of fun. I'm really excited for you. Congratulations on a successful Kickstarter and what looks like just a great game. I'm looking forward. I mean, clearly you're a smart guy. You've got your brain, you've got a good head on your shoulders. But having said that, as we so commonly do on the show, it is time for us to take all of that perceived smarts away. Our final segment of the show is the rapid fire segment.
All right.
Patrick, you want to run him through how rapid fire works?
Rapid fire is quite simple. I will ask you 5 questions. You may not repeat the question or say or ah or do anything else to try to think up an answer. You need to immediately answer my question as quick as possible. I will start off with a really easy first question and then get more difficult as I go on. Do you understand the rapid fire?
I believe so.
All right. Are you ready?
Yes.
Where is the home of the Goodyear blimp?
That's the easy one.
I do not know.
Akron, Ohio.
I should have known.
Terrible.
Name a Grail game missing from your collection.
Jeez. Failing on this. I'm not allowed to say either. Shoot, a Grail game missing. Gloomhaven, but is that a Grail game?
That counts.
That's the game you want, yeah.
Okay.
Name a game other than Arkon that you can play with a standard 52-card deck.
Poker?
Yes.
Can I name
Yes. Name a player color that's not a primary color.
Player color's not brown.
Brown. Nice. Name a player piece in Monopoly.
Thimble.
There you go. Perfect. How hard was that?
I messed up Akron. I mean, I should have. That was
like we've talked about it like 20 times tonight.
That was weak.
No, if it makes you feel any better, I didn't get it either.
You didn't get it either?
No, I'm terrible. It's fine.
I'm gonna need to train up on rapid fire. So
I don't know.
my skill set here.
We'll have a rapid fire tournament at some point, and we'll make sure to invite you back. So that
usually that one's personalized, so no one will hear that one again.
Exactly. The chat is upset with you for not saying shoe. Anyway,
I'm good with a thimble. That's usually. I don't mind a thimble.
Exactly. All right, Casey, thank you so much for coming on the show. We plugged the website a million times, but are there any other places online that people can find you and get more info on stuff that you're doing?
Yeah, I mean, really the website's a great compilation. I mean, again, the Kickstarter page has a lot of the actual review stuff that we probably need to shift over and migrate. So if people want to mull into the web of searching Arkon Kickstarter, they can get more on that side. But the website really has most of the core explanation. Yeah, and that's, if people want to, there's also a contact form. So if anyone has specific questions, if they want to come to the website and shoot them over, yeah, I monitor that and I'm happy to, answer anything I can.
Absolutely. And again, the link is in the description for this video, YouTube folks. So you can just go right down there. Patrick.
Hey, I am Patrick Hillier, and I am hillier than our guest, Mr. Casey Hill. I've been waiting like an hour.
How did I not see that?
Yeah.
Oh my God. I'm so mad at myself. This is terrible.
I am over on the Twitters as Over the Hillier, and what do? What did you play this week? Podcast stuff.
Conversation thing.
And that's about it.
The What Did You Play This Week podcast is also a proud member of Punchboard Media,
Media.
just as the Cubist is. You can find more about us at thecubistpodcast.com. Follow the Cubist podcast or follow me personally at Bill Corey Jr., both on Twitter. And there is a link down there. If you want to financially support the show, you can either hit the shop button at the top of thecubistpodcast.com, or you can go to PodPledge. There is a link to our PodPledge account in the description for this video as well. We appreciate all of the support. That financial support lets us upgrade things. Bear in mind, there's going to be a lot more content coming on the channel over time. Specifically, we're going to be doing more live streams. I did one yesterday that walked through Abandoned Ship. I'm definitely going to be doing another one sometime this week. I'm even kicking around the idea of doing a news show. So like a weekly news wrap up of all the fun press releases that have come out over the span of the week, app releases, all the fun stuff that you might want to know about, specifically inspired by the idea that BGG's interface is not always amazing, and therefore sometimes it's hard to get the news from there. So I'm going to try and be your one-stop shop. So stay tuned. Once again, if you aren't subscribed already, please do so. If you aren't subscribed already, please do so. Click that little bell so that way you get all the notifications. We really appreciate it. Feel free to support the show in whichever way you so choose, even if it's just sharing the word. The more eyeballs we get on the channel, the better everything goes. So thank you, everybody. Thank you, chat room, for making me groan, at least in my brain, all night with the terrible puns. God, this is the worst. Patrick, I blame you. You are the connoisseur.
I did egg things on.
Terrible. Anyway, thank you all for joining us. Hopefully we'll see you all again next week. Have a great week of gaming, and we will talk to you later. Take care.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.